All right, I'm jumping back in because I looked at the other video and could see it was a little hard to see some of the things I'm doing. So we're going to take it from here where I've got the slab. I'm going to go ahead and just trim it down a little bit, wrap it around, and show you the bevel a little more clearly. I'm going to make this thing about 4.5 inches high. So I'm just laying that out. And all you need it really is to be even. One of the things about the tube or anything, or just thinking about this diameter, while it's fun to make small cups, narrower diameters, they do have some problems, which is getting your hand in there to clean them up. Okay, so I'm just going to set this aside for right now. And again, what I was doing before was just taking a piece of newspaper and smoothing the edge over. Let me just do that. And I'll be working that edge again, so I'm not too concerned about it. And then I took a stick and just made sort of a lip line looking parallel, and all I'm doing is just pressing that in, making that little mark. Stick's a little warped, so it didn't quite bite in there. Hopefully you're catching all that. Now I'm going to come down here and make a little mark about here. And you know what? I'm switching sticks. This is just like the sticks that you guys have. All right, so there's that. Now I'm gonna make that little belt again. So I'm pushing from one side and then coming around and pushing from the other side. And so it appears that that's raised. And I like to press. I like carving too, but there's a lot of things you can do, just illusions you can create in the clay just by pressing into it. Okay, so here's what happens now. I'm going to take the tube, I'm going to lift this guy up on it, I'm going to line it up with the bottom, which is level, and roll it up. And again, you can freehand it, you don't have to use a tube, but I'm hoping that this is going to give us a better sense of what's happening. Let's see. Can you see that? Looks like you can. Better. I'm going to go this way now. Looks like I got off square, didn't I? Okay. There's that. And then I'm taking a needle tool. I started to use a credit card, I think, last time. I'm taking this needle tool because it's going to be less drag. The less there is in contact with the clay. That's why a wire works so well to cut the clay off the bag. There's just less there to hang up on it. And I'm going to, just to do this straight, I'm going to take something that is straight, like the stick, and hold it up here. And I'm looking at it straight on. It looks visually plumb. I could use that square, but you guys probably don't have one. So now I'm just going to cut down at an angle and pull that away. And that's, hopefully you're able to see that bevel a lot more clearly. Okay, now I take this thing past there. And I'm going to pivot it around and line up my stick. I'm just going to rough cut it first. Actually, I will just rough cut it first. And one way that is, you can use this wire just to rough cut it. Let's see, can you guys? Yes, you can. Is I'm just going to take this and cut this back with that wire because it's easy. And again, this clay is not going to, these little scraps aren't going to sit out here very long before I get to spritzing them and getting them in a bag. All right. So now I'm looking at this. It's looking at me, I'm looking at it. No, just kidding. And I'm going to draw a straight line. And now I'm going to cut it at an angle. I'm going to open it up a little bit and cut it at an angle from that. And it doesn't hurt, again, to have some sort of, yikes, we'll fix that later. Straight edge to cut against. So here's I'm going to scoot it out a little bit. I got a little short last time. Okay, so one, just kind of scribing it first, and so that helped it stick to it. Okay, there we go. So now we've got a nice bevel on both sides. Cut that out of there. Again, all my scraps nice and soft. Okay, we're getting a lot closer right now. We're going to open that up. The clay is super wet. We're just going to use the serrated rib. Score that. And this is so soft. It's so sticky. I'm actually thinking I'm not even going to put any water on there. I want to rotate this away a little bit just from where I've been cutting it. I'm going to just open this up. Come on, let go. Yeah, see, it's a little sticky there. Just rotate that a little bit. Okay, now we're coming back on there. And this is coming around on it, picking it up. And I should be able to just make that meld together like that. So let's just zip it up. I want to line up if I have decoration that goes around, I want to make sure I can line up those edges. I'll be able to true them up a little bit. Okay, so now we're seeing the two beveled surfaces joining together, and I have that tube underneath there to make that possible. And now I'm going to take one of these sticks and use that to sort of true it up a little bit and further press it. I have more plans for this, but let's just keep those under wraps for right now. Okay, I'm going to take my rib. You guys have a blue rib. It's nothing political here, believe me. I'm just using a red one. And smooth that over. Right now, I'm going to be working this other area, so I'm not going to get too uptight about it. Hoping you guys can all see that. All right, smooth that over. Okay, again, true this up, and like I said, I've got other plans for it, but the next thing I want to do is close up the bottom, and that was that ding that I made. I'm just going to say the clay again is so soft. I don't even have to score to add a little bit of clay in there. I'm just going to smush it on. And like I say, I have plans for this. Just smooth that over. Okay, so I got this smoothed over. Let me just stop that nonsense. All right, so what I want to do right now is you can see this is the whole point of having that paper tube, is that now that I can slide that over. That's bugging me a little bit. I know I said I'm going to get to it, but okay, what I want to do is slide this up, because I can just add a slab across the whole bottom, but what I want to do is sort of make the bottom of this appear to be sort of rounded over. So I'm going to pull it up and just start choking it in. And I will get wrinkles, and I'll have to sort of stop. By that I mean, you can see the paper's wrinkling. I think you can. The clay will too, and so if I can kind of help it along by compressing it as I go, that's going to help. So I'm just doing it a little bit of time, pull it up a little bit more, closing it in. And just slowly, gradually doing this, I can narrow the bottom to just a tiny little piece of clay about the size of a bottle top or something. See, I'm rotating it and pinching and sort of choking it or collaring it in. Now I'm starting to get some little wrinkles here, like right here, and I'm going to just brush over that or compress over that. And because the clay is so soft and pliable, it's willing to work with me on this and do this. And I'm careful, I'm just trying to work in this little area here, and if I had a bunch of decoration that I wanted to do here, I might be even more careful or wait to do it afterwards, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to come back in and work that area a little bit. So we can see some of these wrinkles. There's a good example right there. That was where the seam was. And I'm going to just kind of press over that. I can use the rib 2 to smooth over that. But really I just find just taking my finger and working across it works best. Okay, so I've got a nice curved bottom, and I am ready to cap it off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it down for a second, and that curving is sort of holding it on the tube. And now I'm just going to take my needle tool, assuming I can find it. There it is, hiding underneath here. Come on. And I'm going to cut just back. I'm just beveling this ever so slightly. I don't want to remove a lot of material, just enough to receive the plug that I'm going to put in here. And this also is another chance for me to kind of pinch over those wrinkles. And I'm feeling the paper, and I'm just pinching right past it. Okay, so now what I want to do, I'm going to score this, even though I'm not ready to join it yet. I'm going to score this. And why I'm doing this is to make a mark on the clay. And I'm going to make a little mark right here. And what that's going to do is when I so a little brush, or you can have a sponge, a little bit of water here. And then when I lay this slab on here, let's put this here, I'll know this mark is lining up with that, because it's not a perfect circle. I'm just tapping that, and I'm hoping that when I peel this off, I'm going to see a little mark, hopefully you can see it, and that tells me what I need to do. So I'm going to make that mark here, because I know that's going to line up with that. I'm going to do the rough cut. Oftentimes you'll hear me say that I'll do a rough cut first, just to get the material out. And now I'm going to, so there's how it should fit on there. Now I could cut that back at a bevel, but I'm just going to use the serrated rib to remove. It's not just scoring it, but it's ripping off or pulling down some of that material, so it's got a bit of a taper to it. Okay, this is keeping me, I'm going to smooth that out now because it's easier for me to do it from inside, but that's reminding me that this lines up with this. A little bit of water. And we're going to join that on there. And I want to get, it's just easier for me to do this while this is still on the tube. And I'm going to push it in. And push it in. And have some excess that I can trim off. I'm thinking that could have been a little better. And this clay is feeling sticky enough that I'm not too worried about the scoring, because I think it would stick anyway, and especially because I'm gonna blend it so much. Okay, so now I want to take away some of the excess, and I can do that in a number of ways. One is just to take the scoring tool and score it off, just kind of like I did on the edge before, just kind of pull some of that material off, and then it will blend it into there. And now I can flip over to the flat side. This is all the kind of stuff that ends up on the floor and becomes a mess. Those little things, better to rinse it off. Okay. Getting off the highlights, and it would work really well. It was a good time to bring in your turntable. Okay, now I'm going to take this rib, or your blue rib, and just kind of smooth and compress this. All right, now we're going to flip this over. This is where the fast action would be good. All right, flip her over, pull this out, collapse this in, and it should pull out. Now I've got, let's see, I've got some cleanup to, there we go. I've got some cleanup to do in there. So what I'm going to do now, this is why I like having a larger one, because I can actually get in there with my hand. But if you remember, you've got this, let's get this back. We've got this, you know, all tools can serve multiple functions. And so one of the things I can do with the end of the dowel we gave you is use that, you can sort of see, to join that together. So I'm going around, it's at a slight angle and just kind of compressing that clay together. And then you start looking around for other things that you have. I mean, maybe it's the rounded end of a bottle, or your hand, or some rounded tool, or the end of a broomstick. And I'm just working that joint right now. Now been doing this a while, and so I've collected a lot of tools. So when I see weird little kitchen tools, like I have no idea what this thing is, but it comes in really handy in a situation like this. I think it's some sort of potato masher or something. And I'm fortunate my wife used to be a caterer. She still does, but she was rejecting tools periodically. I talked about the rolling pin, I think, before. And, I get the rejects, which I think is what this was. I think it broke and I glued it back together. But I can just use my fingers and smooth that over. And that's, I'm also going to get in there now. Can you see that? Yeah. And I'm going to work on, I got some little goobers that I picked up. I'm going to blend across the seam right there. And I'm going to be ready to do some further decoration. Now I like, the clay is soft and pliable, and so it's fun to play around with it and maybe poof it. So I might go around and sort of emphasize this little waistline by pushing this out a little bit while it's soft and pliable. It's a little sticky. I'm working, timing is so important, and being sensitive to the temperature, some people call it, of your material. I'm going to poof this out a little bit around this belt. And oftentimes we'll think of, we'll anthropomorphize our vessels and think of them with their lips and their bellies and that sort of stuff. So I'm just sort of trying to accentuate those parts there. There's our seam. We'll be coming back to that. And we will have to work you can see how this is, hopefully you can see, let's see, nice and rounded on the outside, but I'll be needing to round the inside. And I'm going to also just sort of flare that out a little bit. And I've got some time because it's soft. Okay, so that's the rough form, and it's really soft. I'm thinking I'm going to probably want to add a foot onto that. I might have talked about that before, I'm not sure. Keep your tools clean. So I have that water handy. I'm just going to keep it rinsed off. It's a little sticky. Where I'm going with it and where I went with the other one is I want to accessorize it. I want to add a handle to it. So we're going to have to do a little short video on making some handles. I want to break up this surface a little bit, and I'll talk about how I do that. The one that I started before I realized you couldn't see everything ended up, this is where we're at with that guy. And so you can see I've made some refining of the form, or maybe you can't see. But anyway, that's where sort of going with that. And this guy's now firm enough that I can sort of hold it, and it's time for me to make a handle, let the handle get set up and add it onto this. This is way too soft to add the handle to. So I've got some work to do here, as do you, but that's basically, I wanted you to get a clearer idea of the bevel and how that goes together. This would also be, if I want to add a foot onto it, it's firm enough now that I can add a ring on there, so we may have a separate little bit on that. All right, I'm going to cut you off.